This series of author interviews is brought to you by Leschenault Press and the Book Reality Experience, turning writers' dreams into book realities.
So welcome everybody to another Book Realities interview podcast. Today we have the wonderful Kristine Fitzgerald with us. Hello, Kristine. Welcome.
Hi there.
And my name is Anja Mujic, and we are really happy to be here today to talk to you about Kristine's work. And so, we'll start with that. Kristine, welcome. We're so happy to have you, and we'd love for you to give us your own kind of intro about who you are, where you're from, what you do. Could you tell us a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Look, I'm speaking today because I've written a couple of books, but that's not really ever been my main focus. I grew up loving mathematics and, I'm a maths teacher. These days, I'm a maths lecturer at Deakin College. So the writing has sort of snuck in as a bit of a hobby. And I love it though, I love it. I always like to have a creative outlet of some sort. And, writing really does fill that role quite well.
Nice. And for our global fans who don't know where Deakin College is, can you tell us where you live, where you're from, if that's where you've always lived?
Yeah, this is Geelong. I'm in Geelong. I grew up in Wagga Wagga, so Australia.
So we're talking rural Australia for everyone who doesn't know.
Yeah. Grew up in Wagga and I went to uni in Wagga to become a maths teacher. Got my first teaching job in Darwin. And after a few years in Darwin, I travelled I based myself in England, London mostly, and travelled around Europe a fair bit in the school holidays, lots of school holidays in the private schools in England. And then came back and I've been in Victoria ever since. So a little bit in Gippsland, but the last almost 15 years in Geelong.
Wow. And, I even as an Australian myself, I've still never been to the Northern Territory. And I just think it must be such an inspiring place to just be for any amount of time. Something about the land, just like would maybe, I don't know, did it give you so much creative feeling or inspiration or?
Well, I just loved it. I mean, I was only in my early 20s at the time, so I was very green and, a bit naive, but it's a long way to move from home and it was so different and I just fell in love with it. So, 4 years. It was a fair while, but I got the travel bug because in that time I did go over to Europe and I did a Kentucky tour, a whirlwind tour around Europe. And I just wanted to base myself in England at some point then. And so, I had 4 years altogether in Darwin. It's very hot, of course. It's in the tropics, but I loved it. I loved it. And ever since then, I can't cope with the cold.
Oh my gosh, I totally understand. You never really get used to it. And so was there a sort of moment, a pivotal moment where you thought, okay, I need to actually start putting my work out via publishing? What was the kind of moment where you decided to transition from that hobby enjoyment into actually sharing your work with people?
Well, the first book that I published and the first book I wrote was a self-help book for adults. And I went through this time of rushing. I mean, a lot of us rush, but I kind of got stuck in this mode where it felt like my brain was on fast forward and I couldn't slow down. I found it really hard to pull back from it, but I had to, I had to learn my way through that. And I felt like, I sort of picked up some knowledge that would be useful to share with other people. So that was the background to my first book. So, it was a self-help book. I called it White Space, and I published that in 2011. And then I actually found it pretty scary putting that out there. If you're writing about yourself and your own experiences, it is personal. And I wanted to do it, but when I came to having people read it, it was quite intimidating. So I thought, I've had enough of that. I'm not going to do this again. But the desire to write never fully left. And I thought, okay, I want to write fiction. I still want to write books with meaningful messages, but I think I would be more comfortable doing it through fiction. And that's what I've done so far. And
so that's what we're here to talk about with the Harrie Taylor Mysteries. So we're very excited to hear more.
Yeah, so I've started with kids fiction. And I'll continue that for a little while, but I think ultimately adults fiction is what I want to write.
Nice. And tell us more about Harrie. Yeah. Who is Harrie?
Harrie Taylor. Well, it came to my attention that there's not a lot out there for, like, if you've got a child with a disability, there's not a lot of toys reflecting disability. There's not a lot of books showing it in a positive light. And once I found that out, I thought, oh, well, I like writing and I would love to write a story featuring a child with a disability. So I sort of grabbed hold of that idea. And Harrie's in a wheelchair. I haven't specified why or how she's in a wheelchair, but she is. And she's roughly about 8 years old. And she just likes solving mysteries. So nothing big, nothing that's really going to end up at the police station or anything, but just things that happen in her family or friends or community. She likes getting to the bottom of and figuring out what happened.
That's nice. It's like an age-appropriate way to solve mysteries or present the mystery genre to, because I guess how old is Harrie? How old is she in the book? Does she have a specified
roughly
age?
8. Yeah,
okay,
I never did specify, but about 8.
Nice. I guess, do you consider yourself now a bit of a pioneer in Australia in this?
Not really. No, I mean, there'll be some other things out there. I don't really know, but I just want to make a contribution. Nice. And what you said a moment ago, that I haven't put the focus on why Harrie's in a wheelchair, but just that she's getting on with things, even though she is disabled. That was something that was really important to me to portray in these books, that, the disability doesn't hold her back. She's got a very strong little personality and she stands up to people quite well, and she, gets on with what she wants to do, doesn't take any nonsense from anybody. So I wanted to show disability in a positive light.
Amazing. It's not even like disability, it's like different ability, which is that's right. Yeah, it's so important. Yeah, nice. So tell us a bit about your writing process. I know it's a lot of people that we speak to have like whole other lives, whole other jobs. How do you like to structure? Like, give us, I know you probably don't have a set day because you're at uni and doing all sorts of things, but when you are in a writing period, what's your kind of structure daily?
I go through periods when I am in writing mode and periods when I'm not in writing mode. And generally when I'm working, I don't have the time. Well, I do have the time if I really want to find it, but I don't have the relaxed headspace that I need to write well from. So I had some long service leave earlier this year and I did a heap of writing then. So I just need to find opportunities to find the time to put aside to write. But I can't do it when I'm busy. I can't do it if I'm squeezing it into an already fairly full day. Yeah. But once I do get going, I like doing about 1,000 words at a time. So that's nice for a children's book, 1,000 words in a chapter, so a chapter a day. And if I'm really in a good flow, I might write every day, for weeks. There was another book I wrote. It was about 40 chapters, or let's say 35. And in that time, I only missed 2 days. So basically 35 days in a row. I was just really motivated to write it. And it didn't take long at all.
And for you, I guess with fiction, I mean, I'm not a fiction writer, so I'm trying to kind of relate, but do you find that flow comes from really getting to know a character and sort of starting to develop their psyche, or does it come from just inspiration of the story or the setting?
Yeah, you do get to know your characters quite well. And I find it hard at the start of a story when I don't know them that well. Like, they really develop as the story unfolds. And I do some planning, and I set up their personality and things, but I still don't feel I really know them until I'm a few chapters in and it starts to take shape. And then if it's a series, by the second book or whatever, it's a lot easier because I already know, how they behave and what they like to do and the way they speak and things. Yeah, so you need to get to know them.
And I guess once they take a life of their own, especially in a series, do you ever find yourself in a writing flow and the character almost surprises you, like something comes up and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, with my first children's series, it was a fairy story, and I have 3 books in that series, and I wanted to write an adults book, and I planned it. I planned it heaps. I spent ages figuring out what I wanted to write. But when I sat down to start, I couldn't do anything. And I thought, oh, well, this isn't working. Clearly something needs to change here. So I thought, let's just take all the pressure away. Not that I needed pressure on me, but still it felt like there was a bit. Let's just write something that's for fun, purely for fun, just for me. No one else needs to read it. So I decided to write about fairies. And it turned out really well. Once I gave myself that freedom and that space, I was really happy with how it turned out. But many days when I went to the computer, I didn't have a clue what I was going to write. I thought, it doesn't matter, just write. This task is to get the practice. And very rarely did I delete anything major that I'd written, like a chapter or a paragraph. I don't think, a paragraph here and there, but I never deleted a whole chapter. So it works.
It can be tempting sometimes.
Yeah.
I guess that's the one thing that we can talk about when it comes to self and independent publishing is there is this lack of externally imposed deadlines. And so you really need to be self-guided, self-focused. Do you, looking forward now, you've kind of published quite a few books now, do you now set yourself a real clear goal in the future about meeting, say, your first manuscript deadline, or do you give yourself these kind of...
No.
Nice.
No, I like the freedom of self-publishing, actually. I always thought it would be best to be traditionally published, but now that I've had a bit of a go at it, I don't really want someone else telling me what should be in my book or that it needs to be done in 2 weeks' time. So I like the freedom and the flexibility of self-publishing. And certainly I think if I did have that professional help, it would turn out better quality, but I'm happy with how my stories have been so far, and maybe one day that will all happen. But I like doing it my own way, and I'm very particular with editing. No qualifications or anything, but I do read them many times. And I think
that is a qualification in itself, like knowing exactly what you want. I think that is important with editing, to be very clear with the trajectory of. But I guess also then I think what the probably ideal goal would, or ideal situation would be, the huge, big traditional publishers, of course, you lose so much creative control, but, there's these like middlemen, the independent. And I sort of see Book Realities and Lesser Press in that way, because there's a sort of collaborative relationship where, you still have your full creative control, you have your specificities, but there's a bit of guidance in other ways. And I think this middle place is nice to be.
That's right. Yeah. I've been really happy with the cover design and, just really happy with the overall process. It's been friendly, it's been respectful, it's been fun, and I've enjoyed it. So, it is good.
And so tell us what can we expect? I know you say you don't plan the exact timeline, but what's coming next? Your adult fiction, more children's fiction. Tell us what we can expect from you in the future.
Yeah, well, I have written a second Harrie Taylor book, and I plan to publish that next year. I worked with an illustrator. She's a 14-year-old girl, and she did great work. So hopefully she'll be up for it again. I'm still proofreading those stories, though, because there's 2 stories in a book. And then my dream, really, or my, deep down, what I want to write is adults fiction. And I want to explore what happens in the afterlife, what happens after we pass over, because I think there's so much fear around death and not a lot of material out there to state any or suggest anything otherwise. Now, I can only go on my own beliefs, but there's a body of research that I've been reading up on and I just love it. And I want to put that into fiction form and just give people stories to enjoy that may just help reduce fear of death. If we see it as something that's really positive, and really wonderful, that's what I want to contribute.
And do you mean in your research and in your beliefs, do you mean that you think that maybe there could be a whole other world on the other side, or where energy goes?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's been, what do you call it? therapists, if you like, who do regressions with people, and they're visited. And there's, I think, 70,000 cases so far, and so many consistencies that it's really hard to doubt what they've found. So in reading about that, it just feels good. It feels right to me. And who knows? None of us actually know, but I could write stories about it, and in stories, I don't need to qualify it in any way. It's just, imagination and fun. So,
and I love that you are a mathematician. So I always, in my mind, it's like there's this like spiritual woo-woo world, and then there's the thinkers and the logical people. But actually, it is, if you think about it, it is very scientific and very logical, the study of energy and, passing.
There's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, that's so. I'm very excited to read that. That's like right down my alley.
I've got to figure out how to do it yet. Yes. I had a go. I read a book, and a couple of friends read it, and it just wasn't clear enough. Like they said, is it for kids? But I said, no, it's for adults. So it's not clear enough yet. I haven't quite got it right, but it is what I do want to write. So I'm going to keep working on it. And I'm only thinking the other day, maybe the psychic, or the therapist works with the police and helps solve cases, crime cases. I don't know yet. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I am going to do it.
But you're inclined to stay in this sort of mystery genre or whodunit kind of?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know yet.
No. And actually, that leads me to the next question. In saying you've got some feedback from your friends, do you have like a certain people who are your closest kind of confidants you'd go first to for feedback in the writing process? Do you have that sort of collective around you?
Yeah, a small group, and they're really supportive. And a couple of my friends have read that book that I wrote, and it's just really good to get some honest feedback, not from an actual editor or publisher or anything, but just friends. So that means a lot to me, and I can then work with that and keep improving.
Nice. Yeah, that constructive feedback is so important, isn't it? Just to
that's right.
It's so easy to have friends and family just say like, it's all amazing, it's all wonderful, I love your work. But it's nice to have some. And have you received any, I don't know, surprising or amazing feedback for the Harrie Taylor books or any of your books?
Oh, look, I got a letter a week or so ago from a little girl who read one of my fairy books, and it was so touching. She's 11, I think, and she read all 3 in a fairly short space of time. She's a really good reader, and she said she loved it, and she talked about different parts of the story that she really liked, and she said, please write more. Look, I've got some ideas for you. And she gave me ideas for 2 more books.
Wow.
And I always thought that I'd exhausted all my fairy ideas. I thought my series of 3 was pretty complete. I couldn't think of anything else. But she's written out the titles I could use and story outlines and things. It was fantastic.
You've got your own little creative collaborator. I love that. I love that you got fan mail. It's so rare these days to receive letters anymore. That's super nice. I love that.
And I haven't met her, but I wrote back to her and thanked her very much. And I said, look, I wasn't planning to write any more fairy stories, but you've made me stop and think.
Nice.
So maybe one day I will.
And I guess it's been still a bit of a weird post-pandemic time, but do you have any, if people would want to meet you in person, do you do some in-person events or readings or signings, or is it more just when you release a new work?
In the summertime, I do the markets. I sell my books at markets. So that's really when I get out there and see people. There's a nice market down at Barwon Heads, which is not far from Geelong. And I like indoor markets with books. It's just a bit dusty and windy sometimes outside. Yes. So I found this market that I like, and I'll do those again this summer. I did them last summer. So that's good. And there's always family and friends and, the odd event that comes up. There's a book festival in Clunes every year. It's really good. I did that this year. So as time goes on, I'll find out about more too.
And the best way to find you is your website, right? So it's www.kristinefitzgerald.com.au.
That's right. Yes.
And it has all we'll put that in the notes of the interview. And if anyone wants to find you in your events, they can go there. And are you on social media as well, or you're not Not a social
I'm on
media
Instagram.
person. Nice.
Yeah, Instagram. Kristine
Great.
Fitzgerald author. You'll find me.
We can find you. Nice.
Yeah.
And tell us what when you're not being a mathematician or a writer, what else do you love to do to relax in your spare
Hobbies.
time? Yeah.
I do read a lot. I never used to. As a child, Mum tried to get all of us to read, but none of us enjoyed it. But it's only sort of later that I've picked up reading. So I do love reading now, and fiction. I love reading stories. Nora Roberts, she's one of my favourites. I like Fiona Lowe, she's Victorian. Yeah, I just love fiction. And of course that then inspires me, giving me ideas of things I might write myself. But yeah, I love reading. I love exercising, keeping fit, and movies. Movies is my ultimate way to relax. So
It's such an
they're my main hobbies.
inspiration to write. Like when I have writer's block, I'll just go watch a movie or watch a really amazing TV show. And actually you can find so many creative inspirations in that form of art as well. And I was going to say, as someone originally from Sydney and New South Wales, I always kind of get a little envious of the literary scene in Victoria. It's so thriving. Do you immerse yourself a bit? Do you have a lot of writing circle?
Yeah, a little. I am a member of Geelong Writers. I've been to that a few times, but more so I've made some friends who I do the markets with. And one of my friends there, I met her when she was selling books at a market, and I just went up and introduced myself. I nearly didn't go and say hello, but I thought, oh, I will. So I introduced myself and we got chatting and we became quite good friends, and we've done, quite a few book activities together since. And then through her, I've met other people as well.
So good, because it can be such lonely work, actually. For me, it's so important to keep finding community in it. All right, so we love to slowly wrap up our interviews with a bit of like a quick fire questionnaire, if you're up for it. So these are really yeah, please.
Yeah. Before, I was trying to think of Margaret's surname, the author I like, Margaret Hickey. So sorry, Margaret, that slipped my mind for a moment. But yeah, I love Margaret Hickey's books too.
And are all these books that you've mentioned, is it again that kind of mystery genre, or are they all different genres? I have to say I haven't read any of the authors.
Hers a mystery. Yeah, hers a crime mystery. Fiona Lowe, hers a more family relationship drama, women's fiction. Nice. Yeah. So I love that sort of area too.
And Nora Roberts?
Bit of everything. She's written hundreds of books, and but yeah, including both of those.
It feels like when you say it like that, hundreds of books, it feels, I don't know, life just moves so fast. I think, wow, those people that have just written 100 books, it's like, it's no small feat, No,
I don't know how she does it, because they're mostly quite thick adult novels. I imagine she must have people who do all the editing for her. I imagine she does a first draft and hands it over and lets other people do the rest of the process, but I don't know.
Okay, so this is a hard one. What's your favorite book?
Oh, my favorite book. I really loved Northern Lights. It's in the series His Dark Materials, so there's 3 of them. And when I lived in the UK, a colleague of mine recommended them, and it's like I hadn't really read anything like that before. It's sort of fantasy, but really, really good. Love it.
Nice. Do you have a least favorite book or genre?
A least favorite genre? I don't like anything violent, so I wouldn't enjoy that. If crime novels get too violent, then I give up on them really quite quickly. So that will do for my answer.
I'm with you. Are you a summer or a winter?
Yeah, summer. Yeah,
nice.
I love the heat, don't like the cold.
On a completely free day, give us your perfect free day. Who do you spend it with? What do you do?
I'd probably go for a bushwalk. Yeah. So if it's nice and sunny and warm, that's even better. Maybe down at the beach, maybe in the bush, but get outside and go for a decent walk.
Nice. And that brings me to the next one. Are you a mountains or an oceans person? But maybe that's bush instead.
Yeah, look, I love both, mountains and ocean. Ocean can be a bit windy, especially here in Victoria, but still beautiful. Beautiful beaches down here.
So funny though, it's something I find really hard to explain to people, and you probably have the same experience who are not from Australia. Like there's just something so unique about our bush, and like it's hard to explain to people who haven't experienced it, like the magic of bushwalking and our bush. It's just not the same as, walking through European forests. It's just like a different thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
And the smells, just the smells alone, the eucalyptus and the lemon scented gums.
Yeah. And the crunch of leaves under the feet. Oh, I can't wait.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So good. Do you have a favorite movie?
Heart and Souls. That's a great movie. Yeah. Yeah.
Put all these
it's got
things
the
on my
song
list.
Walk Like a Man, and yeah, I love that movie.
Oh, you keep
I've watched it
prophesizing
enough
the next
times
question.
now.
Nice.
I've watched it enough times now that I don't really want to watch it a whole lot more. But yeah, for a long time, that was my number one movie.
Stays in there. And that's actually the next question is, what's your favorite? Well, if there was one song you had to listen to for the rest of your life, what would you pick?
Well, the one that jumps into my mind is by Graham Connors, and he's got a song called We Can Change the World, and it's beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah. And I love that message that empowers us and reminds us that we can make a difference. Life might be hard sometimes, and it might be a bit of a grind in our routine, but we are amazing beings, and we can make a difference, and we can make a contribution. So have that reminder.
We are small in the scheme of things, but our power is not small. I think we forget sometimes that we can, why not, we all have the same potential. Other than writer, other than mathematician, what other profession would you do, or could you do?
Oh, okay. It'd be fun to be a travel guide.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Do you mean
visiting different places?
But that would be like a historian, essentially, wouldn't it? Like you'd have to really know the history of the place. Where would you where would you travel guide people?
Probably the places I want to see myself. When I lived in Europe, I did lots of traveling. Like I lived in England, and went to Europe at least 30 times. The school holidays over 6 years. At least 30 times. But the next places on my list were Greek islands and Canada. I never got to those two. So there's always somewhere else to go and see.
Always.
But I'd even love to just go back to England and visit my friends that I've made over there.
Absolutely. I also lived in England, in London, and every year I'm still like, do I have an excuse to go there? No, but I'm just going to go anyway because I just need to just be in London for a while. And that's actually a good one. Do you have a favorite city so far of all the ones you've been to? One that comes to mind?
Not a city so much, but when I was traveling around Europe, Croatia was my favorite country. And it's not one of those big ones that, people might say London or Paris or whatever. But Croatia was just so beautiful. A really long, thin country. Is it?
Yeah.
It's so long and narrow, and a lot of coast on either side, and the water there, and I suppose it must have been summer when I was there, but just so picturesque.
Yeah, the water is something else. I agree. Nice. All right. Well, that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing about your inspiring work. We really are very excited to hear about it. In your website, there are links to all your books, where we can buy them, the best way to get them, all of these things, right?
Yeah. Yep. That's all there.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much, Kristine, and we really look forward to hearing what you are going to do next. Thank you. All right.
Thanks a lot, Anja. Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
If you're an independent author and you'd like to be a guest on our podcast and YouTube channels, simply email guest@bookreality.com or visit our website at bookreality.com and have a look at our podcast page.
Hi, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more readings and author interviews. And don't forget to hit that button to be notified every time we post new content.